Big Willie broke with tradition and protocol for his 40th birthday, because the official birthday pictures that he released, the photographs, the three of them focused on his charitable work with the big issue. They weren't the sort of usual formally set royal portraits that you see on an occasion, and as Catherine showed in those photographs from her recent 40th birthday. No, it was a dramatic departure, and we also saw him sharing slices of his 40th birthday cake with that big issue vendor who took him under his wing the other week. He went back to visit him at his pitch outside of Tesco in Hammersmith, I think it was, which is so nice to see them catching up. They're like old friends now, aren't they? Old pals. And actually, William spent the entire day of his birthday working at Kensington Palace. Work, work, work. And then he did take the time after work to enjoy a little birthday tea with the family. It's also been revealed that little Prince Georgie Porgy held a bake sale in aid of tusk conservation during lockdown. The chief exec, Charlie Mayhew, said that the prince wrote a very sweet card to accompany the proceeds, telling of his concern for endangered animals in Africa. William has also spoke about George's hatred for littering, and this is something that I despair of as well. He said that George is a bit confused and a bit sort of annoyed by watching people drop litter. And, you know, litter dropping is community violence. It is one thing that I loathe, as well as seeing people spit out their gum on the streets and spit out, well, just spit. They gob, and some of them sort of blow their nose. And I don't want to describe it because it makes me feel ill, but the things that people discard on the pavement, whether it's from their own bodily fluids, their own personage, or their garbage and their trash, makes me sick. And I do blame the parents in many of those cases. That should be drummed into them from the earliest days. And I'm not talking about if you chuck an apple core out the car window, you know, as long as there's nobody behind you, dear, and you're not causing an accident. That's absolutely fine. You know, something biodegradable is different. But I am one of those people that will witness an act like that, dropping a tin can or chucking a piece of paper on the floor, and I will pick it up and I will go after them and say, "Excuse me, you dropped this, sir." And I won't take any backchat from them either. And I will shame them and make no apology for it. It is community violence. You know, and I tell you this, if I was walking down the street with the man of my dreams, even if they ticked every single box, if I was walking down the street with the man of my dreams, even if I'd been single for 70 years, dusty on the shelf, had never found love, and then along came the man of my dreams, even if it was David Gandy, Saul Lamont, or Prince fucking Edward, whoever it was, my dear, the moment that I see them willfully, intentionally drop, discard some piece of trash on the floor, willfully, as if it's nothing. Over! Over! I would never be able to look at them in the same way again. That is not the behaviour of a gentleman. That is not the behaviour. That is not noble behaviour. It is the antithesis of thoughtfulness. It is the epitome of selfishness, and it is treating the country, the nation, and the national garden as a sewer, as your own personal toilet. It disgusts me. That is the kind of thing I would never be able to look at somebody the same way again. Never! Wasn't the Queen's dress lovely when she received the Archbishop of Canterbury? Which is something I'd never like to do, I've got to tell you. But she received him in his purple robes. There was an audience at Windsor Castle, and she was pictured with no stick. No stick, so she is still determined to make do without it whenever she can. I will confess to you, it was strange seeing her with that hair. I'd never seen her with hair looking like that before. And I know you're going to say she's getting older, it's fine for her to have it cut short, but it doesn't take too much effort to backcomb it up into her usual bouffant. She still has enough hair to do that. She's had it looking lovely very recently. And I must say, I didn't enjoy seeing it. in such a diminutive form, and actually, bless her, she looked so diminutive in those photographs, but she can't help that at 96 years old. She looked adorable. She looked so cute. But Angela Kelly, 5 minutes of backcombing and a bit of lacquer before a public appearance like this wouldn't go amiss, all right, dear? Just saying. The Archbishop presented the Queen with a special Canterbury Cross in recognition of her service to the Church of England over 70 years. She is Supreme Governor of the Church of England and Defender of the Faith. The Archbishop, of course, was absent for the Jubilee celebrations due to COVID, and while I would never wish that upon anybody, of course, it was a blessed relief not to have him waffling on at the Jubilee with his woke political opinions. Just saying. My fruits, it's Windrush Day here in the Kingdom, which is the time of year when we commemorate, remember and celebrate our beloved friends, neighbours and lovers who hailed from Commonwealth realms abroad and joined us on these fair shores. The Windrush generation are so called because they arrived here, or rather their ancestors arrived here, on the MV Empire Windrush, which was a liner cruise ship sort of affair that brought Commonwealth citizens here from the West Indies, here to Britain between 1940 to 1971. And I would like to take a few moments to pay particular tribute to my fruits that are in that large old fruit basket out there of all you Fruit Loops, those particular fruits that hail from warmer climes, those Commonwealth realms, and who faced struggles when they arrived on these shores all those decades ago. And one of the great joys I found doing these broadcasts is the rich variety that I have in my audience and viewership. It's absolutely incredible. I get to hear stories from you every day, and even those of you who hail from a particular part of the Commonwealth or the wider world, you all have different stories to tell in a different perspective, and I take it all on board. I might not agree with everything, but it helps to enrich my world and my ideas and give me something to play with. I'd especially love to hear from those of you who spring from the Windrush generation in particular. I'd especially love to hear from you to get your opinion on how far you think we've come, how important you think the recent Black Lives Matter movement was in England and what a difference it made to you, be it good or bad, because I already know from hearing and reading your comments that some of you think that it damaged race relations in the UK and others think that it was entirely important and crucial. And I think it's wonderful that we have both sides of the coin here and everything in between to play with. I would really hate it if it was just an echo chamber for one particular kind of view. So I welcome them all. And as I've told you before, I have different split views within my own family because much of my own family hail from that Windrush generation. And in fact, I'll be partying with them tonight. There will be a moment of sober reflection because we'll be having a meal together, a large family get together with a meal. But then once the kiddywinkles have gone to beddy, it's party time, and there will be partying, and in fact there'll probably be a lot of twerking. So watch out. William and Catherine appeared at Waterloo Station today to unveil a monument. Wonderful setting for it by Basil Watson. And the Queen said that it pays tribute to the profound contribution made by Windrush pioneers. And as you can see, the monument depicts a man, woman and a child in their Sunday best standing on a pile of suitcases. What do you think, my Windrush fruits? Tell me about it. Catherine was immaculate. That gal, how she brings it out the basket every day. You know, how she brings it out the fruit basket every day, flawless. Flawless. Almost lawless. Given that Saturday night fever. A la Travolta, ain't she? A la Travolta. Stunning. We've seen this jacket of Catherine's before. It's an Alexander McQueen number, and the earrings are by Chalk. And before they unveiled the monument, their first stop in the morning was a drop-off at Elevate, a youth organisation in Brixton, celebrating British Caribbean creatives. And William, in that dark suit with that purple tie, like a big purple eggplant, or aubergine, as we say here in the kingdom. Oh, ooh la la, stunning at 40 years old, isn't he? Absolutely stunning. I haven't said happy birthday to him yet, have I, my dear? Well, I'm going to save that for later, my dear. I'll wriggle myself into my Marilyn dress, and I'll look a hell of a lot peachier and a hell of a lot classier than any Kardashian that can try and squeeze themselves into such fineries. I'll wriggle into my Marilyn and I'll wish them a happy birthday in private, my dears. Yeah, they looked absolutely exquisite, but I've got to say, they were upstaged. Not by a Harkle in their dreams, my dear. They were upstaged by somebody who I think would have made a fabulous queen, princess, duchess, whatever you want to call it, and that is Baroness Floella Benjamin. Beloved Baroness Benjamin. That lady is royal from head to toe and every inch in between. She truly is. Beloved in the kingdom. You don't hear that much of her these days, but I knew of her as a Liberal Democrat peer. Before that, she hailed from television. She was a television personality, beloved of a children's entertainer she was. And I've heard her speaking over the years with great fondness and great respect about Her Majesty. She's known the Queen for a long time. And of course, she's been honoured by the Queen. She is Trinidadian British. And she is a fine example of somebody who faced the struggles of the Windrush generation and who made good and didn't let it embitter them. Somebody who understands that most of us struggle in some way. She's spoken in the past of meetings with the Queen in 2012. She had lunch with the Queen and she was thoroughly impressed with the Queen. She said the Queen was extraordinarily empathetic. What was her words? The Queen had such empathy with me and the story I told her. She told the Queen, she said, "Ma'am, when I was young back in Trinidad, we used to sing God Save the Queen at school. We were taught to respect you, and we were told that the streets were paved with gold in the kingdom, and we were encouraged to come over. But when I got there, ma'am," she said, "I faced horrendous prejudice and racism when she came to England." And she said that the Queen listened. She said, "We really hit it off together, she and I. She really heard." And, you know, like anybody, I feel terrible that she had that experience in England. And as you've told me in the comments, it wasn't everybody's experience. I think a lot of it depended where you landed. If it was in a city, if it was in a village, how welcoming communities were, how suspicious they were of other peoples, other races. But it's people like Floella, and I am going to draw what some might think is a vulgar comparison between the plight of black people and the plight of gay people. I know some don't think that it's a valid line to draw, but in actual fact it is a valid comparison because both of those qualities are innate. You don't choose your sexuality, you don't choose who you're attracted to, and you don't choose the colour of your skin, your complexion, where you hail from. So in actual fact there are similarities. And I don't want to speak on Floella's behalf, but the fact she doesn't carry bitterness, like many of our black friends and our friends who hail from the Windrush generation. The vast majority of people in my life, my friends, don't carry these kind of resentments and bitterness that you see in the media appearing from all these speakers who claim to be speaking on everybody's behalf. They have a healthy balance, and just like they appreciate the struggles of, we're talking 50 or 60 years ago now, aren't we? Most people appreciate the struggles and prejudices of that era should not be judged from 2022 and understand that societies and attitudes, well, I was going to say evolve. They don't always evolve for the better, but in some ways they do. And for example, in the case of prejudice towards marginalised communities or what's seen as minorities, those relations have improved. Because as the world's become more global and smaller and we've been able to see representation, there's been some understanding, some greater understanding. Things have changed so much. And, you know, am I going to tear down everybody from the 40s, 50s and 60s? Because, like Floella Benjamin, I don't doubt that she experienced prejudice and unfair treatment, but guess what? So would I in 1950s, 60s, because I'm unconventional, not in any extraordinary way, like millions of other people. The same kind of unconventionality. But back then you had to fit into a certain mould to be accepted in society, otherwise you were ostracized, bullied, beaten, murdered, carted off, and a few decades before that you'd be taken away like Oscar Wilde to do 2 years hard labour. But like Floella Benjamin, I don't sit here from 2022 besmirching the people of that era, the attitudes of that time, and while I can certainly feel sadness for those who went before me, and I'm sure at times some anger on their behalf, I refuse to be subsumed by victimhood when every opportunity is available to me now, and every opportunity is available to everybody in this country, regardless of where they hail from. And I'm sure someone's going to pipe up and tell me about current injustices are going on. Well, I'm not talking about a perfect kingdom, because I'm not aware of any perfect country out there. If I was to wander out on the street now in my beads, this kimono thing and my crown and my fan, I'd get a few strange glances. But now in 2022, in the middle of a city, the likelihood is that I would come back alive and without a few black eyes, like I might have done 20 or 30 years ago maybe. And like I certainly would have done 50, 60 years ago. There's always the chance that there's one lunatic out there or some immature, repressed person who needs to express themselves with violence. There's always that risk. Whereas if you pick me up in this garb and plonked me in Uganda or in Egypt, where they're still torturing various kinds of people, or in Saudi Arabia, where you get stoned to death, and that's not the only country, for being different or for not fitting into what their culture or religion insists that you must do, or in Russia or in China, or yes, even in some far-flung rough part of England where things aren't quite so broad-minded, because there are still pockets of that exist. Of course there are. So people have gotten the idea that the world is somehow aiming for perfection, and that at some point in time everybody's going to be so perfect and so free of any prejudice, and there's going to be absolute non-violence, and it's just going to be this halcyon era of utopia, pure utopia with a sprinkling of nirvana. It ain't gonna happen, my dear. You know, I'm sorry to disillusion you, but it ain't gonna happen. There's always going to be some rotten fruit in the basket, I'm afraid. And if it sounds like I'm waffling on trying to hammer home a point, well, I am. That's what I am doing, and I make no apology for it, because it's important for me, as somebody whose nation was besmirched in the past year by a prince of our own realm and his wife, with lies that tarred our nation, damaged its reputation, seriously, worldwide, throughout the Commonwealth. For me, it is important to make the distinctions and to say that, yes, we acknowledge that there's difficulties, but we also, the vast majority, I do believe, know that this is a tolerant, loving nation who has been making rapid progress year on year, to the point where most of us who live in the city, and for who most of our friends, colleagues and family are all colours, no colours, whatever you want to call it, whether you see or don't see colour, we're past all that. So don't drag us back to some era where you insinuate that these prejudices and microaggressions are rife and that people are being held back in any way other than, you know, if there is any kind of prejudice or problem out there, it is more to do with class, because I can assure you that the white working class boys out there that are coming up will look on with utter confusion, because they're left behind and marginalised as much as anybody else from backgrounds of other colours and other cultures. I can assure you of that. Working class white boys. But even that class system has been upended throughout recent generations and isn't what it was, and it's not a barrier to success. It's not a barrier to thrive. Of course, we want more education for these communities. We want more investment. That's an ongoing thing. You know, this fan's not doing much for me during this heat wave, so I've smuggled in my electric fan. Bliss, 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 bliss. There are some advantages to the modern world. There truly are. That's lovely. Yeah, I've done all I can today, my dears. It's blinding hot and I'm melting like the candle, so that's all I have for you today. I will see you in the next broadcast. Thank you for dropping in. If you'd love to treat me to a lovely cool peach tea with ice, or a nice iced latte in the morning, my tip jar's in the description box below. Thank you, darlings. I'll catch up with you soon. And, well, I'm off to party this evening, so I'll probably be a bit tender tomorrow. But I hope you have a good party yourself and get twerking on my behalf. Lots of love and see you next time. Toodles.